It's been drilled into us ever since we were children that the more we study, the better our grades will get. But what if I told you that's not entirely true? We're often told by our parents and teachers that we need to study more to get better grades. So we naturally just make the connection that more time spent studying equals better grades. But what if I told you making that assumption can be extremely dangerous and also the reason that you're getting cooked in your exams? The truth is, and as crazy as it may sound, that students don't know how to study, and it's not our fault because we were never taught how to study to begin with. Studying now just feels like a chore, and the reason is that you spend so much time studying that your brain just makes the connection that, oh, if I sit down to study right now, it's gonna take me hours and hours to study, it's gonna be tedious, it's gonna be long, and it's just gonna, drain me of my energy. What if I told you that does not have to be the case when you're studying? Back in year 11, when I was doing my GCSEs, I basically used to study 8 to 10 hours a day, or at least I thought I was studying. And then when my mocks came around and I got like B's and C's or something like that, I was like, I worked so hard just to get B's and C's. So that didn't make sense to me, and that's when I truly clocked it that I was obviously doing something wrong. So when summer came around, I sat down and I did my research. I watched a ton of podcasts, I watched YouTube videos, read different articles, read books, did so much stuff just to understand what I was doing wrong while I was studying and how can I improve it from there. And that's also why I created this YouTube channel, so I can share those tips and advice with you guys as well. There's a Chinese saying that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the second best time is now. And that's exactly what this video is for. I'm going to make sure that you guys leave this video knowing how to study, how to manage your time so that you can study less and get better grades at the same time. Chapter number 1. How long should you study? We've been talking about how long you shouldn't study. We said you don't have to study 8 to 10 hours per day to get good grades. But the question is, how long should you actually be studying? The thing is, it really doesn't matter how long you study, whether you're studying 10 hours a day, whether you're studying 2 hours a day. If the main thing, which is your study technique, is wrong, it really doesn't matter how long you're studying because you're not going to get any benefits either ways. I used to think that if I studied 8 hours a day, which would consist of me reading the textbook, making some notes and barely doing any questions, if I did that for 8 hours, I would be considering myself productive and actually getting some work done. And that's where I went wrong because I was studying all those 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, whatever I was studying, but I wasn't getting any benefits out of it. And the reason I wasn't getting any benefits out of it is because I was using poor study techniques. And basically, whatever information I was taking in from the textbook or my notes or whatever, it wasn't actually sticking in my brain, which is why I couldn't recall it in the exams itself. Think of it like this. I used to hear something from one ear, and that same thing used to exit from the other ear. Basically, I would just read it, remember it for 5 minutes, and that information would leave my head after those 5 minutes. So basically, I was just doing a whole lot of nothing. So now that you know that you don't exactly need a specific amount of time to be studying per day, you don't have to study 2 hours per day, you don't have to study 8 hours per day, it's all up to you. And it all depends on one single thing. Chapter number 2, study techniques. Believe it or not, study techniques make all the difference in the world. You could study 1 hour a day and get the top grades in the world. Only if you use the correct study techniques. Let's start off with the bad study techniques that we've been accustomed to, that we've been doing for so long that we can, ever since we were children, we've been using these study techniques thinking that they actually work. And some of them you might be doing right now that you don't realize how passive they actually are. Let's first understand what bad study techniques are. So bad study techniques are those study techniques that are passive and that don't actually challenge your brain. So the entire concept of you using a study technique that's actually, good for you is does it challenge your brain? Does it force you to recall concept? Does it challenge you to actually solve questions? That's the entire basis of what makes up a good study technique. So what are study techniques that don't do that? Some of the study techniques that are pretty bad include rereading, highlighting, note-taking, underlining, and summarizing. And believe it or not, these make up 90% of the study techniques everyone does. Rereading, highlighting, note-taking, underlining, especially note-taking and summarizing. Horrible study techniques because your brain is in passive mode. Think about it like this. You have a textbook in front of you, you're writing down your notes. What are you doing? You're essentially just copying what's in that textbook onto a piece of paper or your laptop or your iPad, whatever. You're in passive, your brain is on autopilot mode. It's just looking at it and copying it down. It's not actually doing any learning, or it's not actually challenging itself. I could very much be thinking about Man United versus Arsenal. By the way, take that Arsenal, you're absolutely shit, while taking down my notes. I'm writing down my notes, and at the same time my brain is thinking about the highlights on how Cunha scored in the 86th minute. like, you get me, like your brain could be completely elsewhere while you're studying. It doesn't really matter. So what really consists of a good study technique is something that actually challenges your brain and forces you to learn. So what are some examples of good study techniques? Well, there are two examples that I have right now. There are obviously more than two study techniques that are actually good for you, but the best two are active recall and spaced repetition. Let me tell you quickly what each of those are. Active recall is basically just doing practice questions. So for example, if I'm like sitting down and doing past paper questions, that is active recall, because when you're solving questions, it's forcing your brain to recall concepts that you've learned before and actually use them to answer the question. So that's challenging your brain to remember something, and that which is a learning process in itself. The second one is spaced repetition, and spaced repetition is basically just when you review information at increasing time intervals, all because of something called the forgetting curve, which is like, if I study something today, I'm going to end up forgetting it by next week if I don't review it in the middle. So what spaced repetition does is, let's say I study a topic today, I'm going to study it 2 days later, then I'm going to increase the gap again, I'm going to study it 5 days later, then maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, like that. So what happens is that you constantly interrupt the forgetting curve, and you actually end up remembering the information because you kept interrupting the forgetting curve. Okay, now that we've talked about how long you should be studying, how you should be studying, what about the third thing? Chapter number 3, planning. The reason planning is so important is so that you don't end up cramming. Basically, these study techniques won't work if you're trying to use them a week before the exam, because that's just not how it works. You're supposed to use these study techniques consistently throughout your year. So for example, starting October, let's say, October to May, you're supposed to use these study techniques, not just if you start using them in May, because then they won't exactly have, that level of effectiveness. Before I move on, by the way, I built the perfect productivity planner for students so that you can manage your time, your progress, and ensure that everything that you have going on gets done on time. You can check it out, first link in the description below. Think of it like this: if I start using active recall and spaced repetition like 2 days before my exam, it's not exactly going to give me the best return on investment, because these methods are supposed to be used over a long period of time. Like, they're supposed to be used long term. So if you're just trying to use them 2 days before the exam, they're not going to give you any bit of the same effectiveness that it would give you if you use them consistently for months. I mentioned that you could study 1 to 2 hours per day and end up getting good grades, but those 1 to 2 hours per day should be over a period of long time as well. I thought that is pretty much common knowledge until someone asked me this: oh, if I study 1 to 2 hours per day like a month before my exams, am I going to be good? No, you're not going to be good. Because that's not how it works. You're supposed to be studying over like at least 6 to 7 months, over a period of 6 to 7 months. You can study 1 to 2 hours per day with the correct study techniques, and you will get the good grades. But if you start doing that like a month before the exam, I promise you, or I'm sorry to say, that it's not going to work, because no matter how good your study technique is, you're short on time because you're irresponsible with your time. The best thing, if you're in a situation where like you only have a month before your exams and you're panicking, well, it would be better for you to cram. And I mean cramming as in like, okay, I'm completely going to switch topics and give you advice on this as well. If you have a couple of months to your exams and you've not started studying, what I want you to do is up your hours. So study like 4 to 5 hours per day. Make sure all of your content is done, like you're caught up on your syllabus and you know what is coming in your exam. Number 3, and the most important thing, spam past papers. Do as many past papers as you can, because if you're not doing past papers and you have a couple of like a month before your exam, you're cooked, bro. You should be doing past papers only at this stage. And number 3, don't stay up late. Number 4, don't stay up late at all. Go to sleep immediately. Like, I would say go to bed at like 11 max. Wake up early, whatever you can. Like, your sleep should be very important, because it's going to allow you to recover, remember, and basically whatever you've learned throughout the day will be stored in your memory only if you manage to get good, deep sleep. Okay, anyways, back to the topic now. Once you learn how to study, which is what I made this video for, studying won't exactly be a chore for you anymore, because studying was never meant to be a chore, or never meant to be like something which you despise, because I know how it feels like. I know how it feels to be studying for like many hours per day and not exactly get a good return on investment from it, because you're using poor study techniques. But once you start using the correct study techniques, you can study for less amount of time and get better grades. And that is like the most ideal thing you could ever offer a student, which is saving their time for other things, but still end up getting really good grades. Studying is not as hard as you think, and if you use the correct study techniques and you manage your time well, it is pretty simple. Like, you can get a lot of time to do a lot of different stuff. I mean, I managed to create a whole YouTube channel, do different stuff, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all of that stuff, while I was doing A levels. So trust me, you can do quite well if you're able to manage your time well. And yeah, that's about it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check out my videos on active recall and spaced repetition if you want to learn them a bit more in detail over here. You can check out my ultimate study planner in the description below, and subscribe to the channel anywhere on the bottom corner right over here. I'll see you with another video very soon. Take care and goodbye.